Did you know canning was developed in France by Nicolas Appert in 1809? Well, here with me today is Family and Consumer Science Agent Hillary Ayers to tell us all about it. Welcome, Hillary.
Thanks, Jana, and thanks for having me again.
Awesome. So can you just tell us, why would people preserve their food at home?
So one reason why, you would preserve food at home is you want to save the harvest that you've grown in your garden, right?
A lot of hard work.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work that goes into it, and a lot of times food goes bad really fast. So by preserving your food, you can make it last, especially when you can, up to a year.
Oh, wow. So that's the statement, where good intentions go bad, when you get your vegetables from the store and they don't last, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so what is the role particularly of canning as far as preservation of food and what we grow at home?
So when you can your food, it's going to, get rid of certain enzymes in that food. It's going to prevent bacteria from growing. And of course, it's creating an airtight seal within that jar. So your food is going to be preserved for that year-long period.
Okay, so we're talking about, the safety of foods and that kind of thing. That's a big deal when it comes to canning, and a lot of people, get really afraid. So can you tell us some of the important things, or really one of the important bacterias that come, if it's a bacteria that comes along with canning, so the viewers would understand how important it is to be safe?
Oh yeah, definitely. So the number one reason why you want to can and really follow those directions is because the number one bacteria that can be found in canning and preserving food is botulism. And if you contract botulism, you'll know right away. You get very ill, and so you always want to follow the recipe, the instructions with canning. But that's why it's so important to do it correctly and follow those steps.
Right, and we don't want to, make people afraid or, have fear about it, but botulism is real, and you can get very, very sick from that.
Yes, definitely.
Right, and so how many different canning methods do we have? I know we have the 2 pots here, but what are the 2 methods?
So there are 2 different methods of canning. You've got your water bath canning, and then you've got your pressure canning.
Gotcha.
So in water bath canning, you're going to be canning foods that are higher in acidity. So that would be your fruits, jams, and jellies.
Okay.
And then in your pressure canning, it's the opposite. You're going to be canning the low acidity foods. Okay. So things that are typically, vegetables, meats, poultry, seafood, and even soups.
Wow, and it's interesting that you say meat. That wouldn't be the first thing that would come to mind when I think about preserving food. But, so tell us about what we have here in front of us. This is a water bath, you said, right?
Yes.
And then this was the what again?
So this is the pressure canner.
Okay.
So again, this is a water bath canner, and again, it's for, preserving or canning jams, jellies, and fruits.
Okay, got it.
So what happens in this canner is, you're going to put it on the stove, you fill it with water, and then while you're preparing your jam, jelly, fruits, you're going to put the burner on, and the water is going to start to get hot.
Okay.
And then what happens is you're going to put your jars in the water bath canner on a rack.
Okay.
And I will show you.
Okay. Oh, how neat.
Like so.
And our vegetables are falling over.
Well,
That's okay.
Usually the rack would be filled with a lot of can.
Right, all
jars,
the way around.
All the
Okay,
way around.
I see.
And then what happens is you would lower this in, and then you're going to bring the water to a full boil.
Okay.
And then you would place the lid on, and that's when you would start your timer according to the directions for whatever it is you're making. So
okay.
you start it once the water is boiling and you've dropped that rack into the water.
Okay, makes sense.
And then after your usually 20 to 30 minutes, that's when you would bring those jars out.
Okay, makes sense. And this,
So in a pressure
heavy-duty pressure canner.
Right,
So how does this work?
In a pressure canner, it's very similar. However, instead of using hot water, you're using pressure, right, from the air, from the steam to preserve the food.
Similar to a pressure cooker.
Yes, similar
Okay.
to a pressure cooker,
Okay.
but I will say, if you're someone who has, say, a pressure cooker at home that is not for canning, you do not want to use it for canning. And the reason why is because it cannot get to the proper temperature to
Okay.
preserve and really kill all that bacteria. So it's very important that you have the proper canning equipment.
Good point. Glad you said that.
Yeah.
All right. And then we have some other tools here.
Yeah.
Can you explain to us what that
Yes. So you're going to need a few tools, right, when you're canning. So the first thing that I will point out, of course, is you need your jar.
Okay.
Okay, so there are different sizes, and so you're going to need your jar, and then you're going to need your lid. So typically, you would have a flat portion here for
Okay,
your lid,
I see.
because this really seals down. And then you have your rim, which you would tighten, but only finger tight.
Okay.
And
So
then
not just so tight where you
yeah, you
can't turn
can
it
do
anymore.
it really tight to where you're like struggling to get it off. It's
Okay.
only finger tight. And the reason why it's finger tight is because during that canning process, this part seals. So
Okay.
it's going to get tight on its own. And then we have our funnel here. So the reason why we have this is when you're pouring your food into the jar, it makes it a lot easier so there's not going to be a mess all over your table.
Okay, so can you talk about the mess that happens, which I've heard about it before, but if you put too much in the jar, what happens?
Yes, so it's a great point. I have a tool for that too.
Okay.
If you put too much in the jar, it might not seal properly and it might not preserve properly. So you're at risk of having either too much air in there, and then what will happen is it'll explode, this won't seal, and then you've lost
Got your
food
produce all
preservation.
at the bottom of the pot.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not going to be a fun time.
Yeah.
So this tool, speaking of space, is your headspace tool. So your recipe is always going to tell you how much headspace that you need, and it just helps you measure. And when I say headspace, what usually is how much water or vegetable or whatever you're putting in the can, how much space you need from the top of the
Okay.
jar here. And then this also removes bubbles. So that's another important thing within canning is you want to remove bubbles from the jar because again, bubbles are pockets of air and we don't want air in our canning,
All right.
in
so,
our jar.
So quickly, can you tell us what the last one is and then just wrap us up with some really good essentials for canning?
Yeah, so this last one, very important, right? We're putting jars into both of these water bath and pressure canning and they get really hot. So we're not going to want to use our hand to go in there and get burned.
Makes sense.
So this is just a really easy tool. Go in, grab the jar to place it out.
Quick essentials that we need to know.
Yeah, so quick essentials. So, canning, again, is a wonderful way to preserve your food at home. Please always be sure, that you follow the recipe. Don't try to alter anything. And check your equipment regularly.
Awesome. Good to know. Thank you so much, Hillary.
No, you're welcome.
Now you know the importance of canning and the different types of canning. Try it and see which one works for you.